There we go. All right. So just bear with me a second here while I get the setup. All right, no worries. So look, thank you very much to everyone for coming along tonight to this meeting of the Rotary Club of Melbourne. This is obviously a very special night. We've got a very special guest with us as well. It's also a bit of an interesting meeting for us as well. But by the way of introduction, my name's Stephen. I'm the club president of E-Club of Melbourne at the moment for the next, 3 weeks or so until they're rid of me. But of course, given that we're kicking off things tonight, I also want to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the traditional custodians of the land of Australia, which for us here in Melbourne is either the Wurundjeri people, the Wathaurong, the Bunurong, and many other nations across the different lands upon which we're meeting tonight. So I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge the many different dignitaries we have with us tonight. Now, of course, I wouldn't be able to go through the whole list one by one because we have so many of us. But of course, I'd just like to acknowledge in general the past, present, and future RI presidents, RI directors, the zone coordinators, regional councillors, district governors, Rotary community leaders, the assistant governors, district Rotary representatives, club presidents, club officers, Rotaries, Rotaractors, friends, and family. I hope I haven't missed anyone in that great long list. It's great to have you all here with us. Whichever club you're from and from whichever part of the world you're from, it's great to have you here. And we're very welcome to join you. Now, as part of this as well, we're going to be having our housekeeping for the evening. Whoop. Is that me? So, as part of our housekeeping, so we might already have seen this. By all means, please do set your names in the Zoom chat as well, so we all know who's on and also what club you're from. It's great to get an idea of where everyone is in the world. And so, on top of that, we also have the chat that's available as well, even though everyone is on mute. Please do use the chat, use it freely. You know, call out to people that you see who you know, who you'd like to say hello to. Make comments on things that you're seeing within the presentation as well. That's really what this is about. And of course, ask questions. That's going to be really important for us to have a really good dialogue. But that's generally how this is all going to work. But look, to set the stage, I'm told that it's very nice for us to actually mention a little bit about the club that we actually are. So, you know, I will do some of that. So for the E-Club, we've been around for about 11 years or so. And, you know, for us, one of the big things that we always try and do is do things a little bit differently in Rotary, try and find new ways of doing things. Meeting online used to be a bit unusual, but of course, this is common to all of us now since that thing 4 years ago that we know, since none of us talk about. But for us, one of the things that we do have is we have members from all across Australia, from interstate, but also around the world as well, which we'll talk about a little bit. And that really for us, one of the big things is that we don't want to focus just on our club. We see that our service really is to Rotary overall, that our impact is more than just one club. It's across districts, it's across any boundaries and all around the world. And so we have things locally like our e-meals program, but also a lot of our impact goes far beyond the local area as well. But of course, we want to reflect on the fact that we're at a very big turning point. This year has been the first year when regionalisation has kicked off within Australia and proper. The regional council is now in place. And of course, we're about to enter an interesting transition point, especially for us as a club. So with these new community groups, we're also going to be transitioning out from our current role within the Batman cluster within District 9800 into the first region-wide community group with our E-Clubs community group that we're going to be joining. So for us, we're going through a fair bit of a transition there as well. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. We get to find new ways to serve, new ways to work with people. And we're not saying goodbye to people, but it is an opportunity for us to expand our horizons into new things. And with that, this is going to be an interesting evening just to set our perspective going into a new Rotary year, to hear from the big boss. So that's what we're here for tonight. But of course, we want to open with a bit of a formality. And for that, I'm going to ask our member, past District Governor, Mr. Donald Ripper, to give a toast to Rotary.
Thank you, Stephen. And we are not Mr. Thank you, Chairman, President Stephen. And Stephanie, it's so good to have you here tonight. And also a number of other friends, past presidents of the Rotary Club of Melbourne. Robert, I see you hiding in the background there. President Dieter from Jerusalem. And I'm not going to say any more because I'm going to miss some. excepting Murray Verso, who's so important that we always mention him, my go-to man. Thank you, Chairman, distinguished guests, my fellow Rotarians and friends of Rotary. I congratulate you all on being part of this worldwide fellowship of Rotary International. And tonight is really a great indication of how much a worldwide fellowship we are. There are some worries about Rotary's numbers, and we have been trying to address them within this zone, and hopefully we will be successful in that. But Rotary is just as necessary today as it was when it was first introduced in 1905. All those things that we still have, wars, and we have a number of friends with us tonight who are dealing with that at the moment, civil unrest, natural disasters, water shortages, worldwide health issues, continue to be a challenge to Rotary clubs. You are part of 1.4 million Rotarians in over 30,000 clubs, in over 500 districts, in over 200 countries. So when I say you are members of a worldwide fellowship of Rotary, I mean it literally. Rotary and Rotarians love a challenge. And to quote our founder, Paul Harris, at the 1940 RI convention in Havana, Cuba, Rotary stands through the tempest rage about. Rotary still stands. Why and how? Because it is grounded not on fear or rivalry or suspicion, but on the eternal and indestructible rocks of friendliness, tolerance, and usefulness. I'm sure, like you, proud to be part of Rotary International, also to be an Australian in my case, and I would hope that each of you is proud to be a member of your nation. And I'd ask you all to not stand, but raise your glass if you have one, and drink a toast to Rotary International. Rotary International.
The Rotary International. Thank you very much, Mr. Past District Governor Donald Ripper. Now, I do want to say, just as one thing, so we only discussed the fact that he'd be doing the toast like maybe 10 minutes before all of this. So he's pulled that all out of nowhere, which just says what an absolute pro he is at this sort of thing. Thank you very much, mate. Much appreciated. Now, this is a very special guest, obviously, and we want to have a special Rotarian in order to actually welcome our guest and to lead this conversation tonight. We don't have a serious Rotarian. I'm not a serious Rotarian, but we do have someone among us who definitely is. And that would be one of our members, our past president, Madhumita Bishnu, who exemplifies a lot of the things that we have as part of the unique identity of our club. So she's a member who is part of our club, but also lives in Kolkata, India, and serves Rotary around the world in a whole bunch of different roles. She's, among many other things, a foundation cadre advisor as well for the Basic Education and Literacy Program. She's a regular speaker at many different RI conventions, hence she has photos with just about every incoming RI president I could ever imagine. Numerous different leadership roles in RAGs and fellowships, but is also one of our first regional councillors as well, coming in as the portfolio lead for service projects and programs. So I can think of no one else who I'd rather have welcome a very distinguished guest this evening. Madhu, please take it away.
Thank you so much, President Stephen, for that warm welcome. Greetings to our RI President-elect Stephanie and to each one of you who are present tonight. I would read out a short bio for our President-elect. Stephanie Urchick is a member of Rotary Club of McMurray, Pennsylvania, USA. She will serve Rotary International as president in 2024-25. She has been a Rotary International director and Rotary Foundation trustee. She has served Rotary International in numerous capacities, including training leader, regional Rotary Foundation coordinator, Rotary International president's nominee. Stephanie has also served as chair of Rotary Strategic Planning Committee and Rotary Foundation Centennial Celebration Committee, as well as member of various Rotary committees. A Rotary member since 1991, Stephanie has participated in a variety of international service projects like NIDs in India and Nigeria. Currently, Stephanie is helping to partner clubs and districts in the US with Rotary clubs in Albania, Kosovo, and Ukraine for humanitarian and educational services. Stephanie's professional background is in the higher education consulting and entertainment industries. She received her doctorate degree in leadership studies from Indiana University of Pennsylvania and has been recognized and awarded by Rotary Foundation and numerous community and international organizations. So here I present amongst all of you our Rotary International President-elect, Stephanie.
Thank you very much, Madhu. I appreciate that. And President Stephen, when you read out the list of dignitaries, it became very clear to me that the gang's all here. Everybody is here. That's fantastic. Usually when I start a presentation, I do that by saying hello to the family of Rotary, because I do consider all of you to be part of my Rotary family. Today, this evening, what I've been asked to do is talk with you a little bit about Rotary's action plan. So I want to talk to you about how it was developed, what it is, what it isn't, and what we're supposed to do with it. You know, you may have heard me speak in the past and use the phrase simply irresistible. And that's what I'm asking every Rotary Club in the world to do. If you're already irresistible, I want you to stay that way. And if you're not yet irresistible, I want you to look at tools like the action plan to help get to that irresistibility. Because when we get to being irresistible, our membership issues are taken care of, because the people who are in our clubs don't want to leave. They're having such a good time. The club is fantastic. And the people who are on the outside, not yet with us, look at our clubs and our clubs are very attractive because we're irresistible and we're doing wonderful things and all the things that make a club irresistible. So let me tell you a little bit about where the action plan came from. Somewhere around the year 2017 or 16, Rotary International realized that we had been talking for over 30 years about our organization. We weren't growing, we weren't growing, we weren't growing. 30 years. So finally it said, you know, we really have to, instead of talk about it, we're people of action. We need to take some action and we need to move on it. But in order to do that, we needed, first of all, to have a plan, to do some research and have a plan. So the Strategic Planning Committee was formed, and it was a joint committee. So it had half of the members were appointed by the Rotary Board, and half were appointed by the Rotary trustees, and then they found somebody to chair it. And so our job really was not to write any of it, and we didn't write a single word of the action plan. Instead, our role was to do the research, to find out what the Rotary world and others were saying. So our first job was to do surveying. So we talked and we sent surveys out to Rotarians, non-Rotarians, former Rotarians, alumni, Peace Fellows, anybody for whom we had contact information. The second thing we did was something called focus group study. Some of you may have heard of it or even participated in a focus group. It's different. In a survey, it's an individual activity. You sit at a computer and do it, or pencil and paper. But in a focus group, you're in a room with other people. And as you hear what they're saying, their answers may trigger something in you that you may not have said in an individual activity. And after the focus groups, we also did in-depth interviewing with members of our staff at all of our locations all over the world. After all of that research was done, and we also did the typical analysis of our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, our threats, we looked at all of that and we had over 1 million pieces of information. So our job was to sift through that information and find two things. The first was our vision statement. So as we did, we looked at phrases that kept coming forward and we put them together, and that became our vision statement. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change around the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. I have to tell you, the first time we released it, however, it had a different phrase. It had a phrase that said something about Rotarians attempting the impossible. And when we sent it around the world to get feedback, the Japanese Rotarians said, absolutely not. Nobody can do the impossible. So we had to step back and look at the information again. And that's how the phrase create lasting change came forward. And the second time we released the vision statement, it was very, very well received. So the second step for us was to go back to that same data, that 1,000 pieces of information, and see what were the things that were strategic movements that could push us into a thriving future. And those 4 things became what we call our priorities. Our priorities are improve our impact, expand our reach, improve engagement, and increase our ability to adapt. Now, you don't have to take any notes. All of this is on the Rotary website. So I hope that you will just listen and you can refer to the Rotary website. In addition to this information, there's also a lot of things that you can just copy and use in your Rotary clubs. So let me talk about each one of them individually. So I talked about how it was developed. I want to tell you what it isn't first. It is not Rotary International saying you must do this. It is not a mandate. It is simply a tool. It's a tool for Rotary clubs to use if they want to move from good to great, if they want to become irresistible. If there are Rotary clubs in the world that don't want to do that, that's okay. It kind of reminds me when I was a young child, I went to a dentist and the dentist said, only floss the teeth you want to keep. So it's kind of the same idea here, okay? It's a tool, and we hope that Rotary clubs will embrace it and use it to help move into a thriving future. So let me talk about the first one. The first one is increase our impact. This priority is talking about us taking a look at what we do and getting comfortable with measurement, assessment and measurement. Because we have to be able to say to our communities, look, we had an impact. Many Rotary clubs do a lot of things and many things, but we have to get used to taking a look at where we started and where we want to be at the end, and did we get there? It's very much like going on a diet. You have to step on the scale before you start and see where you start. Then you have to employ the things you want to do for your diet, and then you get on the scale to see if it worked. That's the same thing our Rotary clubs have to do, and it starts with assessment. We need to look at our communities and find out by partnering, if you will, with other organizations, places like chambers of commerce or governmental organizations. They can be of assistance to help us figure out where are the needs in our community. And then we figure out what we want to do, we employ the steps, and then at the end we measure again to see if we've had that impact. At the RI level, the best example of how that's been embraced is something called programs at scale. You know, when I started in Rotary years ago, it was matching grants. And you could take a small amount of money and you could do wonderful things. You could put a well in somewhere and you could do great things. The problem is there was no sustainability built in. So 10 years later, if somebody from a Rotary club visits that well, they might see that the well is dry, that the sign that says Rotary put this here is hanging. So we got smarter and we created global grants with sustainability. So that meant that once Rotary left, were there enough things happening that people could take care of that project and the work of Rotary would continue? But now programs of scale are a massive $2 million project, and they're meant to be projects that happen in countries where there's already some evidence that things are moving in that direction. You may recall that our first one was to help rid malaria in Zambia. Think about that, getting rid of malaria in an entire country. When that happens, that's impact. So that project has a 3-year lifespan, and Rotary clubs, were able to jump in and help with that. So we're already, I think, on our 4th year of the programs of scale, but that's an example of increasing our impact. So we want Rotary clubs to think about, how can we do this locally? The second one is expanding our reach. We have been in existence, as PDG Dawn said, since 1905. And for over 100 years, we had the same meeting model. Every club in the Rotary world did the same thing. We met 4 times a week. We rang a bell, we took attendance, and there is nothing wrong with any of that. But there are people who are looking for a different kind of experience. They want something different. So our Council on Legislation in 2016 opened the door for us. You're a prime example of that. That council created E-clubs and passport clubs, and so E-clubs are no longer a pilot. It's an official way for Rotary clubs to meet. And we have corporate clubs and satellite clubs. We have all different kinds of ways for people to coalesce and get together and serve. So the idea is, if people have the heart and the hands for service, there's a way for them to come into Rotary now. Now, they have to also have our core values. I'm not talking about just getting anybody off the street and putting them in a seat. No, that doesn't work. We know who the people are who are just like us. They're our friends, our associates, our family members, our neighbors. So we know when there is a quality person who could be a Rotarian. So that's what I'm talking about, reaching out to other people, other groups. This also means looking at where our Rotary Club might mirror the community. So looking at our communities, does our Rotary Club look like the community? So if there are pockets in the community that we haven't tapped yet, that gives us an opportunity, whether it be socioeconomic status or race or gender or whatever it is. It means we have an opportunity to become more diverse by looking at our community and making sure our Rotary Club mirrors that. So that's what the priority about reach is suggesting to us. The third one is enhancing participant engagement. A participant does not only mean a member, although it does include members. It means anybody who comes into the magic of Rotary. It could be parents of your RILA students. It could be the people who are beneficiaries of your service. But certainly it also means members. One of the best ways to engage members in an existing club is to do an annual survey, asking your members how you're doing. In the United States years ago, we had a mayor in the city of New York by the name of Ed Koch. And he used to walk around town and say, how am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? He'd say it in the supermarket or on the subway. He was trying to get instant feedback on his performance. We need to do the same thing. We need to ask our members. And there are many tools that we can use. Rotary.org has a dozen of them. The Health Club survey, all kinds of different things where you can create your own. You can do a Survey Monkey and ask simple questions. Do you like when we meet? How we meet? Do you like the projects we do? Are there other things you'd like to see us do? That's a good way for a club to make sure that members have a say in the future of your club. When you have new members coming into the club, the best thing you can do at the beginning is have an entrance interview. Ask them those same questions. What attracted you to our club? What would you like to do in our club? Do not think if you bring in the banker that the banker wants to be the treasurer. Maybe he or she doesn't want to do that. They're working with numbers all day. Maybe they'd like to do something different. So we need to ask people, what would you like to do? Get to know people as they come in the door. You know, I often talk to clubs and they'll say, yeah, you know, we've had a problem with attrition and we did an exit interview and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? That's a stupid time to talk to people. If they're marching out the door, they've already made up their mind they're leaving. Getting to know them as they come in is much better, because then you can tailor your speakers and your projects and your socials. And from time to time, you're going to hit on something that makes sense for people. And that's what's going to keep them. So engagement has a direct relationship to retention in our clubs. And then the final one talks about increasing our ability to adapt. Well, as you heard President Stevens say 4 years ago, man, did we get a lesson in adapting? Well, you know, we had this pandemic and we couldn't meet the way we had it. Every club figured out how to do something to stay connected. Most got onto some kind of virtual platform, but there were many who simply picked up their device and called each other. Are you okay? Is there anything you need? Can I drop something off? And the number of COVID grants that clubs engaged in was astounding, because we have the DNA, we want to help. So there are all kinds of clubs around the world who were providing PPE to places and doing things to help in the pandemic. In some places, we actually used our polio vaccinators who had boots on the ground to go into communities to educate them about COVID vaccinations. So Rotary stayed relevant. The world was craving connection, and we figured it out. So today, this priority is really asking us to look at our governance, and you have in a big way in your zone. You're looking at, you know, new models of how Rotary can operate. And that's what this priority is about. It's asking us to look at how can we streamline what we're doing and get more efficient and get more effective. You know, this is a terrible story to tell you, but in my very first Rotary Club in 1991, when I walked in, I met a man in the club. His name was Byron. He had been the treasurer for 34 years. What in the heck's wrong with that picture? That club, we should have said, hey, Byron, you've done a fabulous job. How about put a manual together that we can pass on to the next person? And we'd like you to do our gala or our golf outing or our flag, something. I mean, 34 years in the same job is crazy. You know, so we really, as Rotary clubs, need to look at our structure and our governance. Do we have the right people in the jobs? Or do we have enough people doing? Do we have too many people? You know, Rotary's always good at adding things, but not so good at taking things away. So we really need to make sure that we become efficient. This one's also reminding us about the importance of continuity. You know, President Stephen is leaving in about 2.5 weeks, but I'm sure there are things that he's done for this E-Club that you don't want to change, that they've been great improvements and you've gotten better. And that's true in all of our levels of leadership. You know, President Gordon woke us up last year when he reminded us how important mental health awareness is and the importance of removing the stigma. Well, he's leaving office in 3 weeks. Does that mean we're going to drop all those projects? Of course not. Of course not. And you know, when President Shekhar Mehta was in office, he gave a name to something that we'd been doing all along anyhow, girls' empowerment. And he left office, but we're still doing those projects because they've engaged our members and they provide great results to the people who benefit. And the biggest example, of course, is what we do with polio eradication. Where would we be if after President Jim Bomar went into the Philippines in 1979 and immunized that first group of children, we said, okay, the pilot worked, that's enough, we're done. You know, in 1991, when I joined Rotary, there were 325,000 cases of polio every year. We're down to 8. So we really have made strides because we've been vigilant about it. And you know, that's one of those tricky diseases that we can't stop until it's completely gone. You may recall what happened about 3 years ago. What we said could happen, did happen. Somebody got on a plane, went to Europe, and brought polio back, and it was in New York City, and it was in London. And so that's why we can't stop. We really have to be a part of history and say, okay, here's the second disease that's done, and Rotary was a part of this, and then we can move on to something else that needs our attention. So those are the 4 priorities: impact, reach, engagement, and being able to adapt. So what I hope you will do in each of your Rotary clubs is help your members understand how to use it locally. There is no cookbook, all right? There is no directory. There's no directions that say, do this and this, and you're going to be fine. Because every Rotary club is different. Every Rotary club has its own culture. You know, I'll tell you a story about my Rotary experience. When I joined Rotary all those years ago, I joined my first club, and I was very happy there. 10 years, fantastic club. And then I had a job change. So I moved to another club. That club at best was a lunch bunch. It did nothing. No community service, no international service, no youth, nothing. And so here I am as a past district governor then, and I'm saying, hey, why don't we try? And they would all look at their feet. Or I'd say, you know, maybe we should do something, and they'd glaze over. I just couldn't get them to budge. So I went to the club next door, which is the club I'm in now, the Rotary Club of McMurray. And I've been there more than 12 years, very happy there, you know, into all kinds of things. And I would say that is, my club is an irresistible club. Our membership is growing. We have a satellite. We're doing all kinds of great things. So you have to use the action plan for your own club. So if your club hasn't had someone come to speak about the action plan, either you do that since you've heard me, or get your action plan champion from your zone to come and do that, from your district to come and do that. Or make sure the club members understand what it is, because too often I think people are afraid that it is a mandate, that, you know, Rotary say, oh, you have to do this, and it isn't. It's simply a tool that's there to help us move our clubs from good to great, or from not so good to better. So I'm going to stop there. President Stephen, that's enough of me talking. There may be some questions that people have on the line, so I'm happy to answer anything that people may have.
Thank you, President-elect Stephanie. We have one question, and that is from Milena Dunn from South Wagga Rotary District 9705. And why, the question is, why as volunteers do we need to pay so much per year to volunteer? Is it to keep it elitist?
No, the answer is simple. Rotary is a membership organization that does service. Members pay dues. That means we're a dues-driven organization. If you've been following our 30-year history, we've been dropping members every single year. It's pretty simple. The less members we have, the less operational money we have. So we need, all of us on this call, every one of you, we need to embrace the idea of sharing Rotary so that we get more members. And the more members we have, the more operational funds we will have. It's that simple, I'm afraid. Oh, you're muted, Madhu.
Sorry. The next question we have from our president is, what do you see as the potential for the big changes for things like the regionalization pilot and the interaction with the action plan?
Well, how much time do I have, Stephen? What I love most about the pilots for Zone 8 and for GBI is that you all came to Rotary and you recognized that there was something that needed to be done differently. And the message in a pilot is that we want to try something and we want to see if it works. And everybody is is hopeful that the pilots in GBI and Zone 8 work, because we're standing behind you. We are very hopeful. We're very hopeful that this change will spur your membership, will excite your membership, and will excite others who are not yet with us to come and join the movement of Rotary. Because as PDG Dawn said, the world needs us more now than ever. I mean, there's no question about the fact that Rotary service is in demand. You know, every single day, open your device or turn on your TV, and you know, the world is a mess. Rotary needs us. So I'm very hopeful that these pilots will bring us to a point where Zone 8 and GBI move into that thriving future. The action plan is there to help individual clubs take a look at how to become irresistible. So the action plan isn't necessarily geared for the pilot restructuring. It's geared for each individual club to adapt and take a look at and say, how can we use this to get better? So I hope that answered your question.
So we have the next question from Robert Fisher, past president of Rotary Melbourne. Do you have a particular project or cause that you would like us all to concentrate on during your year?
Well, you know, the cause that you should concentrate on are the causes that excite your membership. But for me, the things that I've been talking about since I have been nominated are three things. I've been talking about the importance of growing membership, and that's a whole other session for a whole other Zoom, and I'm happy to come back. And the second one is peace building. We're a peace building organization. We have to pay attention to how we can use the tools that we have as Rotarians, the tools we already have, to show the world more about peace. You know, there's a peace action that every single one of us can take every day, and it's so simple. It's a smile. Every time you smile at somebody, that's a peace action. We have the four-way test, a brilliant set of 4 sentences that if we put our words and our thoughts and our deeds through that filter, we do have a peaceful environment. And I say to clubs very often, do you recite it or do you live it? There's a difference. We have a peace pole project. These are monuments that Rotary clubs can install in parks or in school campuses. And they say, may peace prevail on earth. They, in all the languages of your location. They have QR codes, they have the master brand. So it's a visible way for everyone in the community to see that Rotary is a peace building organization. And we have our wonderful peace centers around the world. And we're going to open a new one in the Middle East in February of next year. So all of you are invited if you would like to attend. It's a peace symposium and the celebration of the Peace Center. And I commend you, E-Club of Melbourne, for being a peace builder. It's so important that we have peace builder clubs and peace builder districts in our world, because it's another way that we show the world that Rotary is about peace. And I'll draw your attention to 2 courses online. One is a course on peace building, and it's a product of the Institute for Economics and Peace and Rotary. And it helps you understand the difference between negative peace and positive peace. 2 hours, that's all, just 2 hours. And you can gain that knowledge. The other course is a course on conflict resolution. You know, very often, I visit clubs or I get information about bickering that's happening in clubs. You know, this one doesn't like that one. We have an election complaint. They didn't like this, blah, blah. You know what? If we don't have peace in our own Rotary clubs, how in the world are we going to show the globe, people around the planet, that we're a peace building organization? So we have to start internally, then in our families, then in our Rotary clubs, then in our communities. So if you have a desire, those 2 courses are on the Learning Center. And as you know, there are 2,000 or some courses there, but these 2 are worth your effort.
Okay, we have the next question. what would you like to see in your year as Rotary International President in relation to peace? You know, this has been asked by our past president, Gabe Howe, and we are the first peace building club in our in Australia, in fact, not only in our district.
Yeah, well, I think some of my last answer might have addressed that already. You know, Rotary is not going to stop wars. Rotary is not going to negotiate the release of hostages, but what we can do is show people how, as Rotarians, peace building is in our makeup. You know, I'm very fond of the story of the starfish. In fact, I have starfish earrings on today. You know the story about the little boy who's walking on the beach, and he picks up a starfish that has washed ashore and he throws it back in the water. And another man looks at him and says, "What in the world are you doing? You're never going to be able to save all those starfish. Look, there are thousands of them and miles of beach." And the little boy leans over and he picks one up and he says, "I'm saving this one," and throws it in. And that's the same feeling I have about what we do with the tools that we already have in Rotary. We can show people if we live the four-way test, if we do the things that the four-way test suggests to us, then we have an opportunity to show the world what peace really looks like.
Okay, we have two more questions. With sustainability in mind, could Rotary decrease the amount of branded merchandise that only lasts 1 year?
That's a good question. I'm not in charge of our vendors. The vendors they're independent from Rotary, and they're the ones who go through all that stuff. I will tell you that Rotary did make a change. You may have heard about it. There will no longer be a presidential theme. Instead, there will be messaging that comes from the president-elect at IA. So what that means is there won't be a logo anymore. So there won't be pins. So there won't be one-year pins, all right? We decided that as an organization, it's better for us to use our master brand for everything. That will be our pin. You know, when we see that little check mark for Nike, we know what that means. We can't have so many different logos and things because it confuses the world. So that's why we're going to one master brand as our graphic. There will still be a message, of course. And President nominee Mario, who will be president-elect in January, he will get up on the stage at IA and he will release a message. And I've been privy to some of the conversations, and they are dynamic and they're great, and they will rally Rotarians just like presidential themes have.
Okay, so we have a question from Bossa George. Rotary has been growing qualitatively and quantitatively in District 9213 and 9214, both of which are found in Uganda, Kampala. Do you plan to visit us during your year to boost our growth and retention?
Actually, a past director, Patrick Chisonga, is working on a plan for a visit to Africa. So I do believe I will be visiting in January of 2025.
Okay, and we have another question from our past district governor, Mare Verso. Thank you, Stephanie, on the excellent presentation on the action plan, but how do we get clubs to engage with it? So far, there has been little interest in it at club level.
Well, that's why I'm here today, talking to you. Every one of you are in a club, all right? You have to be the champions. You know, I would love to visit 47,000 clubs, but I'm not going to be able to do that. All right. I can do some Zooms. I can do some institutes. I can do some president-elect training, but I have to rely on you. You know, people say to me frequently, well, how do you feel about, the presidency of Rotary International? That's a big job. And I say, I can't go wrong. I have 1.4 million people to help me. So I need your help. every one of you who heard today about the action plan, you become the champion, you become the spark plug, you have to ignite people in your club. If your club has not had a presentation on the action plan, as I mentioned before, make it happen. Suggest it as a program. If you need to find a speaker, contact your district governor. Your district governor can find out who the district champion for the action plan is. We need the action plan to get into every club so that they know what it is and they know what to do with it. Thanks, Murray.
That's all about the question and answer.
Okay.
Thank you so
Well,
much,
thank you.
Stephanie, for responding.
Absolutely. And thank you again for the wonderful invitation to be here.
Absolutely. Look, thank you very much for there's been really questions about that as well.
We don't hear you, Stephen. We don't hear you very well.
Ooh,
Stephen, you're
okay.
breaking up.
Hang on, let's see what I can do now.
That's better, Stephen. This is not great. Hang on.
Don't worry, Stephen. They invited me back to Jerusalem after we had a lightning storm here, and in the middle of my presentation to them, everything went black. Are you back yet, mate?
There we go. Hopefully I should be back now. Let's see if people can hear me. Thumbs up. I'm seeing a few thumbs up. That's hopefully good. Okay, excellent. It wouldn't be an E-Club meeting if we didn't have some Zoom issues. No, look, again, circling back to that, and again, please tell me if I might drop out, but I just want to say again, thank you very much for sharing your message. And again, we can tell when there's professional work, because no matter what kind of question we had pop up, even about all of a sudden potential trips to Africa, you had the answers there. So that's the mark for prepared professional as well. So look, thank you very much for your talk. It's been fantastic having you here tonight. Some final thoughts from me. I love the fact that there was the feedback loops as well. The feedback loops for RI in developing the plan, but also for clubs in how we implement it. Reflecting on the adaptation as well, you pointed this out, the fact that 4 years ago when COVID, of course, hit our clubs, I honestly was looking at Rotary at the time thinking, I don't know if Rotary can survive this, but we've actually done very well, and we have adapted. We have done amazingly well. Rotary is adapted far better than I would have expected, which says a lot about our organization, that we can adapt and we can grow and we can find tools to do things in new ways and to do things we otherwise wouldn't have thought possible. And that fact there, that if you don't have peace in your own clubs, how can you bring it into the community? And likewise in the districts, I love that part. There's that whole thing of peace within the heart and the home, but also within the clubs. That's a takeaway from me that I absolutely love from this. And of course, the final year of the presidential theme. That's just it. Really does say that Rotary is changing a lot as well. The presidential theme is something I know a lot of people hold very close to the heart as well. But Rotary is looking at it and saying, maybe this is something that does not make as much sense in the way we do things going forward. Maybe we want to change it. So from the top right down through the clubs, we're seeing this kind of change coming into place. And I think that just reflects really well on everything that you said. So again, to everyone, I will just say again, singing to exactly what Stephanie has mentioned, please do share your experiences with us from tonight and share things about the action plan as well. I'm going to drop a link again in the chat in case anyone hasn't had a look yet. You have no excuse not to now. But on top of all that as well, just take that forward, consider things. But finally, I do want to say thank you to everyone. So thank you to Don for the toast. Thank you to Madhu for hosting. Thank you very much to Stephanie for your time, especially at this crazy time of morning that you happen to be up, and for giving the time to us. Thank you to everyone who's joined us, and thank you to everyone from the E-Club of Melbourne as well who's made this possible, and everyone who's given the questions. With that, I'll do the formal thing of closing the meeting. I don't have a hammer or something, so I'll use my sunglasses. There we go. That's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Bye.
Take care.